Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Business Infrastructure and Growth Committee. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. We've relocated to this room because it's somewhat cooler than the Council. May I ask everyone to turn off any mobile phones or switch to silent mode? In the event of a fire alarm sounding, please follow the council officers out of the building and do not use the lift. Can I remind members where necessary to complete the gifts and hospitality goods located by the sign-in sheet? You may see that from time to time I will be speaking to the officers on the dais. This is the pretend dais, thanks. Who will be guiding me through any procedural points. As the chair, I'm entrusted to maintain the decorum of this meeting. I would therefore like to remind councillors that respect is to be shown to all members and officers in the chamber and all visitors. When someone is speaking, I would ask that other members listen and do not hold their own private conversations. Any members who do not respect this will be remarked. The intention is for this meeting to finish by 10 o'clock. And can I ask that members dispose of any used cups in the bins provided outside the door? For officers and guests present, once you finish presenting your item, please feel free to leave the meeting. You are equally welcome to stay for the whole meeting if you choose. Now, turning to the agenda. Item 1. Apologies for absence and substitutions. Apologies have been received from Councillor Clark. Apologies have also been received from Councillor Sexton and Councillor Beecher, who is attending as their substitute. Councillor Geach has also let us know that she will be late for the meeting. Are there any other apologies? No? Item 2, minutes. The minutes can be found on pages 5 to 8 of the agenda. Do members agree the minutes from the meeting held on 12th of March 2026 as a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 3, disclosures of interest. Does any member have a disclosure of interest to make in relation to any item on the agenda other than the standing declaration from those members who are also on the planning committee? Councillor Bason.
I'm very sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. Christine, could we add that to the standing declaration of the rest of the council so that yes. Item 4, questions from members of the public. There are no questions from members of the public. Item 5, presentation on Southern Rail. This item is for the committee to receive a presentation from Southern Rail. You will recall, I think it was November last year, we made a recommendation to council that council support, conditionally support, Heathrow Southern Rail's proposals to link Broad South East with Heathrow going through states. Steve, I believe, has an update on the progress they've made. So I'd like to welcome Steve Costello from Heathrow to Heathrow Southern Rail, who will be doing the presentation, and will be a short space at the end for questions.
Thank you. Do you want to go started? Just absolutely. So thanks very much for the opportunity. It is really an update, so I'm not sure if everybody's been involved in the earlier discussions and presentations, but very happy to expand on this. But if we could click on things, thanks very much. So just to recap, we are a bunch of people that came together not to try and make our millions, because this was 10 years ago when we started. But it was really just a belief. We all either have a financial background or a transport background, and we just felt that it was crazy that Heathrow, the UK's only hub airport, biggest single traffic generator, biggest single employment site, sits at the end of a branch line. So this is our board. We're chaired by Baroness Jo Valentine. We're backed by a company called ACON, who are one of the world's biggest multidisciplinary consultants. And it's to their credit they've stuck with us. We've done an enormous amount of technical work, starting with, I think we went through this last time, looking at all the other options that have come forward over, well, I think it goes back to the 40s to connect it through to the network with rail. Thanks, Steve. So that really sums up what you really know, that Heathrow is well connected into London. Zero connection to the west or the south. Huge area of Heathrow's catchment is dependent on the road. And you'll be all too familiar with the implications here in Spelthorne. There's an amazing statistic, around 21% of traffic on the southwest quadrant of the M25, so that's roughly sort of M23 round to the M4, is what they call Heathrow related. And that's Heathrow's own figures. The Mayor thinks it's actually a bit higher than that. So it's a mixture of staff, people dropping people off, visitors, people hire cars, etc. And it is also very difficult to get people out of Ubers, the convenience of a door-to-door taxi. Picks you up in front door, particularly if you've got more luggage or families. So the driver for us was to come up with rail schemes that are delivering journey times compatible with road and as convenient as possible. And that means high frequency because people are worried on a time-critical airport access journey that they don't always trust the train to live on time. So they were our drivers, and we believe, and it's supported by people like the Transport Forum, the Strategic Planning Group, PFL, etc. Our scheme is viable and deliverable with the existing two-runway airport. Because actually Heathrow is getting busier all the time, even without a full runway. It's a mixture of airlines sweating the assets. It's a very expensive airport to use. So the aircraft are getting bigger, the load factors are increasing, but also the percentage of transfer traffic is decreasing. It's sort of stabilised. It was decreasing because of the Middle East startups. People were sort of choosing not to go through Dubai, etc. When there was the Iranian crisis. That is now picking up again, and so more and more traffic through Heathrow is what we call local origin and destination, people who live in the UK. So after looking at a lot of options, we've settled on two route options. The shorter one, and these are both largely tunnels. The shorter one connects to the existing South-West network between Egham and Virginia Water. So that means that we avoid the level crossings in Egham, which contributed to the failure of their track. It also avoids the west-facing port that was proposed. So where the Elmsley multi-storey car park ramp is, beside the station, well, just north of there, beside the bus station, Airtrack proposed putting in a new piece of railway so that trains coming south on the Windsor line would then turn west. And that was quite destructive in terms of stains to the centre. So we avoid that. I think now we're moving towards our preferred option being a longer tunnel, taking it down to the South-West Main Line. But both of these crucially have a connection to join the Windsor line, the Windsor branch, between Windsor, or between the M25 and Staines. So that means trains from Heathrow can come through Heathrow and then join the existing network to Staines. And I'll explain on the next one what that means in terms of the services. So there's three service patterns. The first, the blue, and it should be purple because that's the Elizabeth line, but it's extending the Elizabeth line 4 trains an hour, at least. Ideally it would go up to 6, but we can deliver 4. 4 trains an hour at Elizabeth line would be extended through the airport, through T5, and terminate in a new bay platform at Staines Station. There's a sketch coming up of how that would work. That's within existing Network Rail land ownership. The yellow line is looking at things the other way around, so trains coming out of Waterloo through Clapham Junction, Richmond, Twickenham, etc. Again, calling at Staines, 4 trains an hour, before they turn north to go to Heathrow. So that would give 8 trains in each direction from Staines to Heathrow, with journey times of 6 minutes to T5 and 10 minutes to T2. So we think that's transformational. There would be nowhere else better connected with that frequency of trains. The green is taking the existing Heathrow Express train paths, not the trains themselves, but the slots, if you like, the capacity they use on the Great Western main line, and then extending those trains through over our new infrastructure to Woking, and then 2 trains an hour going down toward Basingstoke, possibly beyond, and 2 trains an hour to Guildford, ideally again beyond Portsmouth. So that's a service pattern that's been agreed with Network Rail, /GBR, with TfL, with DfT, and with Heathrow. So, this is much more than sort of lines on the map. This is actually a credible proposal, but I'll come on to where we are in the next stages. Oh, sorry, just going back. Actually, could you go back one more? Sorry. So, you might be aware that there's also a historic scheme called Western Railway to Heathrow, which was promoted by Network Rail and abandoned in, I think, 2020 or 21. It's very expensive. It was basically a shuttle from Reading, Slough, Maidenhead into Terminal 5. So Western access is really important, but we think it's really essential to take an integrated approach to the train services, because there's limited capacity both on the national network but also within Heathrow, particularly because Terminal 4 is full of trains an hour serving T4. So our alternative proposal that we've developed since we last saw you is this direction. So instead of doing a long tunnel here, it's putting in a west-facing chord, a new junction. So currently where the trains from Heathrow turn east, both Elizabeth Line and Heathrow Express, there will also be a junction which is grade separated, which means the trains are conflicting in movements. So that would mean that the trains, again, from Waterloo, Richmond, etc., Staines through Heathrow would then turn west and serve Slough, Maidenhead and Reading. It's very difficult to model the demand for these because all of the modelling tools can only assess connections that already exist and then model how they might attract new demand with better services. This is a completely new kind of orbital scheme, and this is something that National Highways are very enthusiastic about because it's putting in connections that are not possible. Now, we have no idea how many people would go from Richmond to Slough, but the lesson of the Elizabeth line is that the modelling suggested that the Elizabeth line would mean the central line sort of emptied out. In actual fact, it hasn't. It's dropped a little bit, but it's just attracted new demand. And the other thing that's important to emphasise in all of this is that these services earn a keep and deliver very significant revenue because they're not just serving airport passengers. So, for instance, the Elizabeth line at Staines would be a very attractive route to London for people from Sunningdale, Bracknell, Woking, etc. Because they do have a direct train to Waterloo, but changing to the Elizabeth line takes more people closer to where they want to be. Waterloo has the lowest proportion of passengers who want to end their journey near Waterloo, convenient for Waterloo. That's the highest percentage of people changing onto Bakerloo, Jubilee, etc. And similarly, the yellow line, we think, would create demand over airport passengers. So it's earning its keep on the railway network, but it's also creating an outstanding business case. Thanks very much. So this is just sort of reminding us of the three key tests the council agreed last November. And what we're saying is that trains must stop. Yes, we're saying it will be up to 8 trains an hour in each direction. The hard to Staines work. So I'm not going to pretend that we've got all the answers here, but we have a specialist tunneling consultant called OTB who tend to do the difficult stuff. So, for instance, they did the bank station upgrade for LUL, and we've done the Kennington tie-in, and we've done all this stuff around the world. So what we would commit to is providing you with detailed technical assessment. We're very conscious of the fragility of Staines mineral ecosystems and the habitat. These will be deep tunnels, but they're also very around, and it's thanks to Mr. Beecher that we contacted Jonathan Paul. So we think we have the right teams in place as we move to the next stage. But certainly the desktop studies convince us that it is doable. And obviously we've been in touch with Natural England and the air, etc. And then finally, in terms of providing you with the assurance, we would be very happy to enter into finding improvements in due course. This is just Jonathan Paul's peer reviewed paper from last year, which has been very helpful in terms of very specific modelling in the ground conditions in which we will be passing. One thing that we've changed since we last spoke to you, and it's probably a level of detail that I'd be happy to go into, there was originally a junction box north of Staines Moor, which conflicted with the Hithermoor landfill site, which predates where the landfill had to keep records. So we're staying well clear of that. We're very deep below that. And we're working with the mineral company next door who have the gravel washing plant, etc. The aggregates. So it's work in progress, and I'm not going to pretend that we have any answers, but we're very conscious of the sensitivity. And this is just to show, so TfL were happy to join tonight's meeting, but we didn't want to sort of presume, but they are fully supportive. This is the February 2026 presentation to Heathrow Strategic Planning Group. So they still show Western Rail as an option, and you'll see that they completely commit to Elizabeth Line to Staines. Sorry, the purple. The blue, they commit to the Waterloo services to Heathrow, and similarly the use of Heathrow Express. And Alex Williams is their Chief Strategy Officer. And they say that this is, actually I think the next slide might cover it, but extending, you'll be aware that they've got 10 new trains coming through. And their absolute priority is to use the extension to Staines for that capacity. Mr. Moore was saying earlier that he was involved with the Ebbsfleet extension. That is still one of their priorities, but for now it's focusing on Heathrow. And it's not dependent on Heathrow expansion, because actually, as you may know, the mayor has serious concerns about Heathrow expansion. So this is simply in a two-runway world support. So this is the letter from actually 18 months ago, confirming that operated the frequent floor trains on the service to Elizabeth Line. But this is more recent, just last month. And what that says is a step change in connectivity, notably Southern Rail access. That is one of the high-level objectives in terms of delivering on Rail Street. And it's particularly welcome because a few years ago the mayor had a different scheme for Southern access, which was a branch going down to Felton and joining the South Western Network there. So we're pleased that they and others have been persuaded on the way. That's probably all I say. So not very much. Okay. Most recently, last week, the government published the draft revised national policy statement on Heathrow expansion. They put it out just before the Prime Minister's resignation. So it is quite clear that for Heathrow expansion to even be considered, it needs Heathrow rail connections, which is in a term around the statement of the obvious. But they also, so it's significant that the only vision document that was published with the NPS was this thing called the Strategic Vision for Transport. It doesn't go quite as far as we'd hoped, but of course the DFT are always sort of slightly trying to be agnostic about schemes. But considering where we were, I think 5 years ago, they were so agnostic that they were thinking that Elon Musk's Hyperloop would be a cracking idea to certainly. So we're very content that all of the stakeholders, including the CA, obviously, and Sir Aurora, who is still in the running to provide a quite a different. So I don't know whether it's appropriate to go into this, but this was what I think we've been through last time, which was just ideas. I mean, first of all, it's how we will bring Elizabeth Line to Staines to sort of just rough thoughts on how the town and how the council might capitalise on the benefits of it. I mean, if I go through it and then just say stop, it becomes...
Yeah, if you're going into it, it's inappropriate that someone shouts out.
It's very...
Someone then will let us know if we go into
Yeah. I think you've seen all of these, but obviously, yeah. So going back to air track, this is the Windsor line, Windsor are there, this is Staines Station, going down to Virginia Water, Helmsley Centre. For air track, it was going to be a curve that was dropped in here, so the trains from Heathrow to get to etc. But obviously, the Egan level crossing is already at capacity or beyond capacity. So that's where we are. And that was the local development framework that was introduced a few years ago, just identifying some opportunity areas. So again, obviously, the station. So you know all this things so we can. But to have this opportunity 6 minutes from Heathrow Terminal 5 just seems quite compelling. So this is not ownership. So this is basically the green and red is red is what South Western leased when it was a franchised operator, but of course now with GBR, it's all one entity, GBR. So this is the critical piece of land where we can, I think the next one is, we can get 2 forward faces, Steve-Standing Island platform for the Elizabeth Line to terminate. So we've got a gate line, access to the platform from the existing station, but also a new gate line at the north end, related to the town centre. That's our understanding of the sites that were previously brought forward for that on the application. So it was very much a high density sort of urban scheme. This is without wanting to be controversial or rude. This is just showing just how much of the space is. Especially around here, it's a huge amount of surface tarmac in what is a town centre. This is our understanding of the council's Fruitland land in red. And this is, again, so this is just thoughts, but if there's an existing station there, it's a really nice building, and I think as part of this, you might have seen what TfL have done with the stations they've taken over from the Elizabeth Line. I mean, they've really made an excellent job, I think. So the idea is that because this would be a very busy station building here, and the thinking that leads on from that is that the bus station could relocate to be integrated with the stations. There would be drop-off, obviously short stay and disabled, car parking and stuff. But it frees up this space. and there's the potential to reconfigure the Amazon Centre. It's all we're trying to do is to say it's your land, it's your property, etc. But this is the time maybe to start just thinking about how to capitalise on what is it. An opportunity that I think every other town around Heathrow would absolutely want to seize. And the existing bus station is potentially capable of moving. The multi-storey, there's all sorts of things you can do to multi-stories at relatively low cost. And the next slide is just particularly mindful of the current weather. And then in Croydon, the top deck of the car park is a sort of splash pad. So it's great because first of all it brings into use things that are not used. But secondly, it brings people into towns. They've just done a splash pad in Weybridge, and it's fantastically well used. And it just drives footfall into the town. So if the bus station did move, then obviously there's an opportunity possibly for residential, but maybe just sort of recreating the street scene like an active frontage, it's a bit of jargon, instead of a sort of blank wall to be able to actually have activities to the street. And I don't know what the current sort of letting policy is. I believe that with the new library, but it's an opportunity to maybe rethink the circulation of footfall within the Elmsley and the tenancy mix, etc. The thing I do think to next, so it's just about connections. You know, it's about knitting the station, the bus station, and the town together. And on the Kingston Road side, it's the people that we were hoping to introduce to, we hope there might be another opportunity to. It's a charity called Create Streets, but their view is that I used to be an architect, and the reason I stopped doing it was I just thought architecture was very nice. And they're trying to create a sort of new urbanism that they call gentle density. So it's not pastiche or anything, it's just about what people really like is the sort of development that you might see in Paris. Say there's 5-storey mansion blocks, or London there's traditional mansion blocks around garden squares. But gentle density, and actually you can achieve higher densities like that than you can in great towers, which inevitably have to have a lot of space around them. So this is no more than a doodle saying, you know, it's creating it's potential to do something really nice around the Oasthouse. And this is sort of examples. Then we read somewhere that there was long-term discussions about the station. And then the thing that really does get me excited is that, there might be really good reasons why this isn't possible, is that South Street is kind of almost like an urban motorway. You know, people drive at the speed that the road almost encourages. And to me, it should be a sort of town centre, pedestrian-friendly boulevard, if that's not too complex. But if it was narrow, then obviously you've got a much greater opportunity to develop residential and just soften and work around the elms and wrapping it with the uses. And then this is just no more than, I mean, offices are a funny one because in all of the offices around here, you know, through here, building over the road, it's just, they're all getting converted into resi. But if you are 6 minutes from T5, you're very conscious of what you find if you walk out the front door of Schiphol Airport, or Frankfurt, or Zurich, or any major airport unit, you're surrounded by really high value commercial space. International companies who want to be really next to the airport. So that is no more than just to say, is there an opportunity? I don't know. But that would be an interesting thing, I suggest. Thank you. Thanks very much for your time, and obviously happy to take questions.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Right, let me open it. Does anybody have any questions for Steve? Michelle?
You probably would have been aware that there are certain things we couldn't actually see. Will this be distributed to us, the presentation? Is that all right?
Of course, yeah.
And the other thing is, you did allude to the fact that there was an issue with the current Prime Minister, yeah, well, the possible newly arriving person may actually want to take the focus a little bit more up north. Do you think there's a danger that that might take the focus off of the plans for Heathrow?
It's a good question. I mean, I come from the northeast originally.
I kind of figured something like that.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, Tyneside and the north generally, you know, suffered. I think what I would say is that Heathrow is the UK's only hub. Manchester Airport is very successful, but there's a limit to how much international connectivity it can ever deliver. I mean, more locally here, the example is Gatwick, where airlines have tried repeatedly to seed long-haul routes, and ultimately they fall back to Heathrow. So I suspect that Heathrow will always maintain its preeminence. I think that the issue of the third runway is very much an open question. I think Surendra Arora's idea of shorter runway is quite compelling, because Heathrow is full. The whole environmental impact of air travel is it's no VAT on tickets, there's no VAT on the aviation fuel, no tax. But then, as a small island nation, we sort of rely on international air connectivity. So I don't pretend to know, but it's answering your question. I think there will be some fundamental questions that's particularly if Economar becomes transport.
Yes.
But it's where we started was that a two-runway airport, it needs rail because the M25 is not getting any less busy, neither is the M4, neither is the A4. Probably get people off roads and onto rail. And I think that's why we've been successful in corralling support around the scheme.
Two more very quick questions.
Yeah.
Staines Station is not the prettiest station in the world, is it? So from the perspective of potentially getting something like this up and running, is there a plan to actually make Staines Station a little bit more presentable aesthetically and obviously from a connectivity point of view? And is there an environmental, I don't steal Malcolm Beach and Thunder, but have you done an environmental impact assessment or anything like that from the presentation you just gave us?
Yeah, so we haven't done a full EIA. What we have done is have meetings with Natural England and the EA. So the broad principles are agreed, that they believe that there are no showstoppers, but that the next stage where we'd really like to get to is to go from here, because we have all of the support that we need. We're grateful to the council very much for that. Is to move towards preparing a Transport Works Act for an application. Now that needs tens of millions of pounds. But that would mean that we then start to work all of those things through EIA, the traffic impact assessment, very detailed report. At the moment, we're piggybacking off Heathrow's own demand modelling, which we're fortunate to be able to do. We have an MOU with Heathrow, which doesn't sort of tie us into that, but it means that we can access to all the data. But we have not done an EIA yet. It's really desktop studies.
Thank you.
So,
It looks very nice, and you know, I think it's made people welcome it. I'm not sure. But what at the moment we all know what happened with HS2 and that. So
Yeah.
where's the funding coming from?
Yeah. So, we need two things from government. We need a usage undertaking. So, GBR, Great British Railways and TfL would commit to operating a minimum number of trains over this piece of railway. And each train would pay a charge per kilometre. But that's no different to what happens now on the network as it stands. Each train pays a charge, but it will, under GBR, it will just fall under your profit and loss account. The other thing we need is a guarantee that the Heathrow Express train paths, the capacity on the Great Western Main Line is protected, that those trains don't instead become used for swing. With those providers, and finding a way to unlock the few tens of millions that we need to get Transport Works Act, there's absolutely private finance available to do this, because unlike HS2, it has a business case, but also the cost. One thing that we really have put a lot of work into, maybe on sort of desktop studies, is the cost estimates. Part of the reason for saying the longer tunnels are an option is that tunnelling costs are very predictable. There's a hefty upfront cost in setting the site up and starting with some boring machines and all that. But once they get going, the ground conditions are absolutely spot on for tunnelling. So it's very predictable in cost. So we've got the cost and we've got the revenues. And that is absolutely the basis for a business case. The problem, to be honest, is this initial, how do we fund the Transport Works application? Heathrow are fortunate that they're a regulated entity in the CAA, so that is where the funding comes from. We are not, but we are exploring ways to try to raise that initial funding.
So, at the moment, it's a very nice thing, but nobody's sure of. I mean, you're talking of tunnelling, and yet you've got a picture of an overhead line with whatever you call it, with headlines.
Yeah, it does pop out the tunnel, obviously, to
Yeah.
join into the Windsor line. Yeah. And some of it would be overhead, because that's the Great Western information. Some of it would be third rail. But the thing that I think is the trigger, which we've all been waiting for, so the previous national policy statement was designated in 2018 for expansion. It all came to an end with COVID. Now I think there is a new appetite for, and the previous NPS was very weak on rail. It was sort of very weak. I think here, the difference is if Heathrow expansion goes ahead, there's no doubt it's going to be rail. But I think we've made a very strong case to say that it's needed anyway. That's how we have TfL, TfT. Also, we have these links for Treasury, so I think there is a willingness to come together to make this happen. The big problem is that there's no single nexus, there's no single entity. DfT, CA, Treasury, TfL. They each have their own objectives and limitations.
So, do you think that it will get the okay before the end of this parliament?
I hope so. Yeah.
And how long?
Well, when you say the okay, what we'd ideally like to do is to submit a Transport Works application by late 2027, because it's a good 18 months work at least.
Do you then? So, how long will the bill be about?
So it's about a year to 18 months of design development, and then about a year of procurement, and then about a 4-year build. So it's about 6-7 years
So, you hope that,
from getting the approval.
so you hope that 8 years at the worst.
So,
8 years at the worst.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Lisa.
Yeah, the elephant in the room is pretty large and grey. What is the like the impact. We're having a heat wave at the moment as a result of the carbon emissions, historic carbon emissions. If you expand Heathrow, you increase the number of flights, you're going to increase the carbon emissions of this that. Our weather will be getting worse because of the existing carbon emissions. If a sensible government is in power, they wouldn't expand Heathrow, and they would reduce the number of flights. How will that impact on your railway?
So our baseline business case is viable with a two-runway Heathrow. The current number of movements and the current number of passengers. I thought you were going to ask, to be honest, about the carbon in our scheme from the tunnel, because I know you've asked that before, and it's a good question that we haven't answered. In terms of it's not for us to say. Schiphol did have a limit, which was imposed to gradually start reducing. I believe they reversed that now. It's certainly above my pay grade, and it's a much bigger question. I mean, you've also looked at the expansion committee. The appeal has just been dismissed.
Do you have a limit on passenger numbers that makes your railway scheme viable?
A limit, a lower limit, you mean?
Yeah.
So we were surprised that the demand for non-airport passengers is very significant. Airport passengers are a big number, but they're not the thing that necessarily makes the case overwhelming. So the BCR, for instance, on a two-runway airport, and I know the cost ratio is not the same as a business case, but it's around 5.6. So that's outstanding for the rail scheme, because it's also about the wider environmental benefits, getting cars off the M25, and the wider economic benefits. One thing we're sort of keen on, and this is work that's been done by Heathrow, is not just thinking of Heathrow as a place where UK people go to, but how can you turn it on its head so that when people land at Heathrow, they see the rest of the UK as an attractive place to do business. Because that's certainly the case when you land at Frankfurt or Zurich or Munich or anywhere really. Here, obviously, on the destination board as well. So to answer your question, couldn't quote an exact number, but because the capital cost is relatively low in terms of doing a rail scheme, and we've modelled it with no fare premium, for instance. So at the moment, Heathrow Express is a very expensive service to use. We've modelled no premium. We've also not modelled any change in the terminal drop-off charge or car parking charges. So we haven't modelled any of these things that can influence behaviour. I think that's probably as far as I can go. I mean, you raise very good questions, but at the stage we're at, that's probably as much as I can say.
Thanks. I've got a question from Councillor Atkins, then Paul Moore, and then Chris.
There's just one quick one coming on from something I was thinking. Heathrow employs 60,000 people. Will this turn around to be a 24-hour service so as to accommodate the shift workers?
So it's very relevant to the most recent meeting I had with the modelling team. We've identified targets which we think would need land acquisition, but no property acquisition.
Chris. Steve, I think the update is great. When we started out, I'm sort of working through hoping to Heathrow. This has come fair distance since that. My question really is sort of linked into the finance and the structure. We talk about the capital expenditure being privately funded. When we come to things like the rolling stock, and what intrigued me with the yellow line was, of course, you're going to be converging one line part of the way, which is electrified, and the ready to slam beyond is non-electrified.
It is, but it's overhead electric.
So is the funding the rolling stock? Is that going to be private? Because the line presumably in line with the government's policy is that lines are coming back into national ownership, thank God. And it will be something else that the government of the day have to absorb with already the wide remit that they've got. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, really good question. So when we started, the challenge was with the franchises, the rosters, and all the stuff. The Network Rail was very much two separate routes, Western and Southwestern. And there was a real hostility about what we call route pollution. So trains from the south, the western were like, well, they'll come in and they'll be late, and the thing with our trains and vice versa. Then the GBR, rolling GBR, it's very different. We've had meetings with what's called the Network Rail System Operator, which is a new function, which is effectively a sort of shadow operator taking a complete view of tracking the train. So that's very healthy. The Southwestern fleet, happening the new arterial fleet, was ordered with dual voltage capability. So those trains are capable to move and be on the third rail. And at some point they would switch to 25 kV overhead, which is no different to what is on dense speed when we come through city Thames. So that's fine. The arterials were ordered pre-COVID, so there are more trains than we need for the current timetable. What we haven't done is models what needs would be needed, things like stateway facilities, depot facilities, and certainly the Heathrow Express trains would not be the existing Heathrow Express trains are basically GWR trains. They are also dual voltage capable, so the ones coming in Paddington to go south, but there is not enough of those, I don't think. The reason that they can use those for Heathrow Express is that they were ordered when they thought greatness electrification was going to be Oxford. Never got that far. So there's a whole question around that, but certainly with GBR, it's much simpler. You're just dealing with one integrated, a bit like British Rail as was. So it's very positive for us. And we've assumed, I mean, there's a whole set of assumptions that I didn't put up there. But the assumptions are that GBR, TfL, we specify the services, timetable, operate them, take the revenues. So it's completely aligned with the direction of travel that the rail is moving to.
Looking around the room, any other questions for Steve? No? In that case, Steve, thank you very much. That's been really helpful. Thanks much appreciated. You're welcome to leave now.
Yeah, we want to wait, Steve.
In that case, what I'll propose is we have a quick comfort break for 10 minutes until 8 o'clock while we see Steve out, and then we'll reconvene in a few minutes. That's all right. Thank you. So as we have external guests dialing in for item 7, I'm going to move the agenda around slightly. So we'll see item 7 now, which is an update on the Ashley Bid project before we go on to item 8. So this will simply for the committee to receive an update on the Ashford Business Improvement District project. I'd like to welcome Rishi Sood and Gary Reeves, who will be presenting this item. Thank you, patience, Gary. Richie, over to you.
Thank you, committee, and yeah, delighted to be here once again to be able to give you an update on Ashford Bid. I believe the last time we spoke was in March, and at that time we were at a very early phase of really commencing the outreach and engagement with potential businesses to identify if there was a viable model that could work for the construct of a business improvement district in Ashford. I'm briefly going to talk you through the engagement to date, and then Gary is going to come in and talk you through the work that's happened in a strategic capacity to take us to a point of where we can now share a lot more detail around the construct of the business plan and the key pillars, and tell you about the next steps in the process over the coming months. So as I mentioned from the point we last spoke in March, it was very much an outreach and engagement exercise to ascertain the current desire, mood and feeling from businesses, but also to understand what their thoughts were and what their priorities were to take them forward and to take Ashford forward. And that work continued in strength over the course of March, April and May to identify those key pillars and priorities that will shape the business plan for Ashford Bid. That's been a mix of outreach, both remotely through making calls and engaging with businesses in a remote fashion, but also an awful lot of outreach on the ground where myself, Andy Wilmot and Susanna Crespo, our core team, have been out engaging with businesses, not only in the kind of predefined what we know as Ashford, the station, the approach, Church Road and the side streets, but actually going much wider than that to understand what the geographic area may be for an Ashford Bid. And I think that was really important because, as Gary will share, what we found was that there was an awful lot of interest in Ashford Bid, not only from the centre but also from the periphery streets, particularly as we go north of Ashford Station over the bridge. Significant interest from the likes of McDonald's and other parties like Brooklands College, who were very keen to be involved in the process. And furthermore, we've had some great engagement in building the steering group, and that's a group made up of businesses and the council who essentially shape the priorities for Ashford Bid going forward. And so very pleased to say that over the course of March, April and May, we were able to hold a number of meetings, the last being just last week, with the steering group, and we've been able to finally take us forward to shaping those priorities, which Gary's briefly going to run through with you. Gary, I can pass over to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you. In terms of working alongside all of that work, obviously a lot of the engagement, other than raising awareness, is trying to create a little bit of insight and understanding on what the business community would like to see in Ashford. And starting, I guess, with the geographical boundaries, as Rishi said, it was the first point, and we've come really to what I would term as a sort of linear bid, which takes us down Church Road through Stanwell Road up to McDonald's and Harvester up towards the A30. So that area represents around about 140 different businesses across all sectors, and that is now our target audience in terms of the emerging business improvement district. In terms of what people would like to see, this inevitably in a relatively small town centre as Ashford was very much looked together with the amount of budget which businesses could raise through a business improvement district, and to ensure that moving forward we didn't raise expectations of what could be achieved. And so it's very much the business plan is very much a balance between the aspirations of the business community and obviously the findings of earlier work in terms of feasibility and your own feedback, of course, but also just putting that against the realities. It needs to be affordable to businesses, so they ultimately vote yes, and what that can achieve. So that said, the strategic objectives, which are currently being formed into the bid proposal, which we've recently shared a draft with yourselves, It's across 4 pillars. The first pillar is around leadership and influence. Essentially, it's if you want, the sum is greater than the parts, in a way that getting a collective, it can give a strong business reputation, can create effective stakeholder partnerships, leverage additional funding, hopefully, and have influence over policy, perhaps, and investment decisions in the town going forward. The second pillar, in terms of day-to-day operations, unquestionably the one with most focus is a safer and more secure town centre. And I think that resonates across every town and high street in the UK over the last couple of years, and Ashford has proven no different. And whilst the budget probably won't go as far as having, wardens, as a number of larger bids do have, it will provide a methodology for better intelligence, for intelligence sharing software, which hopefully in time, working with the police, who we sit on the steering group actually, and are very keen on this, can hopefully start to reduce business crime as it is identified through better intelligence sharing. And it should be said, once these networks are put in place, they can share intelligence with neighbouring areas as well, and that sometimes, in terms of organised crime, can start to push that away from our own high streets. And in the end, it creates a better sense of safety and a better perception of safety in the high street, which is good not just for business but visitors and residents alike. The third pillar is around, as you would expect, again, stronger business performance. I think this very much focuses on 2 things. One, reducing business costs and introducing a number of different programs, joint procurement programs, helping businesses to save on things like utility costs, and even things like window cleaning and shared services, which everyone has to get has to undertake as part of their day-to-day operation. If we can get some joint procurement, often one can make savings on those type of tasks. And the other half of that equation, in you reducing costs, but obviously we want to increase sales. Obviously a bid can't do that directly, but what it can do is to try and stimulate additional visitations from the local community, and people perhaps that come more often and stay longer. And that might involve a little bit of work in terms of enhancing the profile of events and promotions in the town. And the fourth item, and this is very much one, I think, working in tandem with different sort of public agencies, really, in terms of just as the high street, what the appearance is, in terms of different interventions we can look at over a period of time, how we can enhance the appearance, and working with some of the landlords, of course, how we can make some of the empty shops, which are always on our high streets currently, a little more attractive through pop-up shops and better shop fronts, etc. And essentially creating a better visitor experience when people visit the town. So those are the 4 pillars which are emerging, and as I say, are the feedback from the engagement work which Rishi outlined a little bit earlier. I think finally, just in terms of an overview today, where we're going from here, clearly we've completed, the early part of engagement, which has helped inform the bid proposal. The next stage is the council, and endorsing that bid proposal over the next period. And then obviously we'll translate that into a business plan in a more formalised, if you want, colourful document, which we can then take out and go back to the businesses we've already spoken to say, well, you told us this, and this is what the proposal is going forward. And all of that essentially leads to October, November, December, when we'll undertake a voter canvass, which essentially is identifying the specific voters for each business, which then leads on to the ballot itself in November. Currently, the planned ballot closes on the 18th of December, with a result on the 21st of December, with a view to a successful result and commencing the bid on the 1st of April 27. So that is a broad overview of the work to date from that side of things. So perhaps I'll hand back to you, Rishi.
You're on mute, Rishi.
Thank you, Gary. So I'll close there, I think, unless there's any questions.
But thank you, Rishi, Gary. Do you have any questions, Chris?
I may just add to that.
Yeah.
Because it might
answer a question that I feel is coming.
Oh, yeah.
On the 30th of July, we are holding an extraordinary bid committee to present a report that includes the bid proposal, the boundary, and the 4 pillars that Gary's just mentioned. So that meeting is to inform and assure the council that the project team has followed all statutory and regulatory
Things that we have to do.
requirements. That's the best requirements, and therefore that report is currently with officers and will be shared at the appropriate time.
I was just going to ask, how many businesses do you need to make this viable, the bid viable, and how many businesses have you actually spoken to today?
I'll perhaps answer the first part of that, Rishi, then I'll hand to you. In a way, the regulations state that for a successful ballot, one needs to achieve a yes vote of 51% of those that vote, which in turn represents 51% of the rateable value that they represent. And one has got to achieve both markers, to successfully put in place and establish the business improvement district. That's a regulatory guideline. I should share in the UK currently, new bids normally get a yes vote, in the region of 60%, because they're new. There's a little bit of a leap of faith, shall we say, in terms of the business community. Once they're established and prove their worth, the longer established bids are now achieving yes votes over 90%. So it's building over a number of years. But to get over the line, it's 51%. I'd like to think we can get 60%, in line with what the UK sort of average is. Sorry, Rishi, I'll let you answer the other part of the question.
So I think Gary may have mentioned there that the geography and the work that's happened to date has identified 142 businesses or hereditaments, I should say, that we would be looking to ballot for Ashford bid. Beyond that, we've actually probably spoken to a further 40 to 50 businesses that would have been in the wider geographic area that was in consideration for Ashford bid. So in total, I would say closer to 200 businesses, if you were to go north, east, west and south of Ashford, that kind of make up what would be classed as the area known as Ashford. Those businesses would have had multiple touch points. Certainly many of them have been met with several times, but they would have all at least had 2 touch points, both physical meetings by either Andy, myself or Susanna over the last few months. And that work is to continue. So I should mention that it's not come to a halt. We're now at the point where we've identified those pillars. We're much clearer on what the process is going forward, and we'll be communicating that to businesses going forward. But that will be limited to the 142 that we've identified that we intend to ballot.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please, yes. Councillor Atkins.
Nothing will ever improve in Ashford until parking is sorted. How do you envisage that will be?
Was that a question on parking? I couldn't quite hear.
Yes.
Yes. Around parking.
Yeah, parking is always an interesting dynamic business improvement districts. Clearly, the bid can do any business improvement district has got a range of different things that it can work upon and seek to improve over a period of time. I think the key here, in terms of answering your question, some of it can do directly, and some of it has to do in partnership with others. And as an example, if the bid, wanted to put on a promotional event, is something, providing it gets the permissions of the council, can go ahead and do that, and it's very self-determining. On other issues such as parking, clearly, the bid doesn't control either the council car parks or the private car parks which might be in the town. All it can do is represent, a collective voice of the businesses to try and seek, a better arrangements as they're perceived, moving forward in the town. And that's where really the leadership agenda comes in, because a town centre, having been doing this for many, many years, it benefits from what I've always called a town team. It's getting all the different stakeholders in the room, and together, that group can then hopefully make a change. And I think parking sits in one of those as one of those items where it's not just the bid, it's pulling in other agencies and authorities to help resolve it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, Lucy, Gary, thank you very much. Does the committee agree to note the update on the Ashford Bid project?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz. Before we go on to the next one, I just want to jump back to the HSR one because for completeness, I should ask if the committee agrees to note that presentation.
Duly noted.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're going to jump back now to item 6. Thank you for your patience, Chris. This is an update on the Smelthorne Business Growth Service. It's to receive an update on that service from Chris Norrington, who you'll know, our Economic Development Manager. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. So the Business Growth Service has now reached its 6-month point. It's halfway through the contract, and we're pretty much smashing all the targets, or about to smash the targets. So that sort of led me to believe that my targets were a bit low, to be honest. We've had 74 business registrations, of which 46 businesses are now being supported directly. And from those, 70 one-to-one sessions have been delivered. And on top of that, 28 startup registrations, and in the last quarter, delivered 5 events, training, networking, etc. One of the standout events was our 3-day accelerator for startups, which provided intensive support and fostered ongoing peer networks amongst participants. That was held at the Jaguar Land Rover venue in Sunbury, and we had 12 startups go through a 3-day intense accelerator course on really how to start a business and then how to take it forward. So that was a successful accelerator. We're doing another one in September as well. So at the moment, the program has progressed from initial engagement diagnostics to the implementation and growth focus support, where we have provided businesses with tailored help that includes sales, marketing, customer acquisition, business planning, strategy, finance, pricing and operations, AI, automation and productivity. Our participant engagement remains high, with many businesses actively applying learning to drive tangible improvements. So on the event side, they're very well received, 90% rated excellent or very good. We held an AI tools workshop, which is always popular, again, for Startup Accelerator and networking events with partners. The last one at the Holiday Inn London Shepperton, where we had over 60 businesses attend. At the moment, our demographics seem to be roughly 50-50, 53% male, 47% female signed up on the program, and a core audience of 30 to 50 age group. A lot of the registrations are coming from word of mouth, so where business owners are talking to other business owners and promoting the service that we're providing. We have, under our mentoring and peer support, 46 of those businesses have been active this quarter, receiving mentoring and peer support from not only us, but also from other business owners as well. We have started an environmental and ESG part of the program, and we have started to look at cost savings with businesses and already achieved some in that part of that program. Our marketing remains strong to drive registrations and increase that visibility of the program. And then our next quarter priorities are really around deepening that impact and providing more measurable outcomes that we can then demonstrate, especially from startups that are starting to see traction in their businesses. Our KPIs are really strong at the moment. So, as I say, we have the 74 sign-ups. The growth events have hit 6 in the 6 months so far, 5 in the last quarter. The attendance record is above our minimum that we required. The startup support is really kicking in now. So out of the 240 hours that we have earmarked, we've done 70 hours in the first 6 months, but we're now looking to provide a lot more in the next 6 months. Our startup club sign-ups are over halfway, so we had a target of 40 startups, 28 overall, and others that are really relevant. The others are KPIs that really come in the second half of the contract. I do have some testimonials from some of the businesses that have joined the programme, and very positive outcomes for them. Combination of that one-to-one mentoring, business growth, strategic planning, practical guidance, our participants have gained greater clarity around business modelling, pricing, market positioning, commercial viability, and long-term growth strategies. We've helped founders validate their business concepts, strengthen their routes to market, to develop scalable business models, which is a criteria of joining the programme. They must have a business model to work from and to develop with our consultants. So this is a quite intense support programme, and so far is proving successful. One of the questions that was asked by Councillor in the last meeting was how many of the last programme businesses were still active. So we've contacted everybody from the last programme, and we've established that 90.24% of that programme is still actively trading. And from that, so that's the existing businesses, and then the startup programme from last time, we're at 80.95, which is a really good number. So it's just showing that the quality of the support that we're providing is delivering measurable outcomes for the programme. So that's the first 6 months. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Do members have any questions, Chris?
I think just very quickly, Councillor Garawali probably stole my thunder for last time, but would the monitoring of the businesses over a period of time not be something that you would do as a matter of course?
Yes.
So that you will keep a track of them to see who falls off and who actually continues to remain successful?
Absolutely. If a lot of the businesses that we contacted are no longer part of the programme, but we do keep actively engaged with the ones that are on the programme, and will continue to do so. The last programme only ended in April, so it is part of the processing.
But you keep monitoring those once you
Absolutely.
drops off. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Any other questions for Chris?
No, it's just great that we have this as a council, and it is very, very helpful. And I keep pushing people towards you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So, does the committee know the update on the business growth service?
Duly noted.
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you. Will to stay or go, Chris?
Don't mind.
Can't tempt you with the air conditioning.
Not tonight, yeah.
Quite fabulous too. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Right, we now move on to item 8, which is the demolition of 34 Kingston Road, Staines-on-Thames. So this item is for the committee to consider approving the group head of assets submission of a planning application for demolition of 34 Kingston Road and the procurement of a contractor to carry out demolition. It's Bruce from Investment Asset Manager and Courtney Baldwin, group head of assets, to present this report. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So as many of you probably know already, the property is a two-bed detached house for many years. It might brought up then for 15, probably actually close to 18, 20 and 90. The council bought the site in 2019, so obviously it's just continued in that condition with the ownership. It sits on a plot of less than 0.1 acre, so it's a small plot, fronting Kingston Road, adjacent to the access police station. It forms a very small part of the Otis House in Fitzroy Park development site, wherever it may. The property is subject to council tax of just over £12,000 a year, which seems very high for a two-bed house. And that's predominantly because there's a 300% surcharge on property due to be considered a vacant second property. A house in a very poor, in some areas unsafe condition. We've been in it myself, testify to that. And we commissioned a building survey which confirmed that to make the property safe costs approximately £50,000 and to bring the property back into use up to £350,000. The committee report mentioned there could have been bats in the property. Fortunately for us, the last of the bat survey was last week. They'd be roosting there, so that gets rid of all the risk in terms of the demolition and timings, the method of the demolition, and slightly reduces the cost as well. Whilst the demolition of the property recently tendered, we now need to go through the procurement process for recommendation. From the work we've done already, it's likely that the maximum cost for the demolition application process will be close to £45,000. To make the building safe and pay council tax for up to 2 years, potentially, we just use that as a time period. Will cost circa 75,000, so versus the demolition sort of maximum 5,000, making it more cost effective to demolish the property. Certainly remove any safety concerns in managed to access the building or be collapsed inwards. The recommendations there with the demolish the property subject to the necessary plan contract.
Thank you, Chris. Do you want to add any response?
No.
Okay, in that case, voting members, do you have any questions? Councillor Beecher, Councillor Geeks. I don't understand. Councillor Beecher, Geeks, and then Gibson. And then somebody's I missed. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hackett. Right, so over to you.
That report. I think it needs more than a map report because nature has taken over this property. I would like to see an ecologist actually have a look at it and baseline the property. The ecology report. More than just facts.
How we will progress with this effectively is the surveys that we do planning. Ecology reports tend to be quite expensive. We've got a limited budget available here, so we can certainly look into the cost, but I don't think we can provide any guarantees that we will do anything over and above planning. This is the statutory protected species and that's things like that. The reality is, even if we did find something else there, if it wasn't protected, I'm not sure. Then check on that in terms of proposals for demolition.
It will establish a baseline of how much damage, not necessarily to the property, but to the ecology surrounding it. That nature has taken over this place.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Not just in one.
We'll have a look and we'll understand. We'll get a cost to see how much it is. And then
Thanks, Karen.
Can I just be really sure my stats quality reporting? I'm sure I'm not the only person.
It will actually look at more than bats. It looks at all any nature that has taken over, like foxes, hedgehogs, and the level of biodiversity in there, and also whether butterflies or the amount of greenery. Yeah,
Right. Okay. So it's primary, so it's animals. It's not because things can be an IB. So it's not looking at plants, so it's looking at animals and
yeah.
Birds nesting, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. Right. Sorry, Councillor Dees.
Sorry, I touched on points that perhaps you touched on. I think what past this property, I thought it'd be a great set for a haunted horror, maybe. Not that I'm suggesting that's an alternative use, but why did we buy a dilapidated property? Why did it become dilapidated if it wasn't dilapidated? And what do we intend to do with the land afterwards? Because if we're just going to sell it, why don't we just sell the land with a dilapidated property rather than pay for demolishing it?
So it forms part of the wider Post Housing East roadside that was purchased in 2019. So it forms that all that area. So as mentioned, it's been dilapidated for probably 20 years, if not more. So it's a decay with the property in terms of the adjacent country.
There was a red line effectively around the edge of the site, and the water will be filled by
Oh my gosh. I might want to do a ghost report.
It's not safe enough.
See what goes to there.
Okay, Councillor, thank you, Chair. My question is, if the building is considered as unsafe and dangerous, my question is, why have we waited for 15 years to discover that? And why have we, during the 15 years, how much money have we spent to secure that building? Is it not a waste of, the first question, why it's coming now, 15 years ago?
Okay, so we haven't owned it 15 years, we've only owned it since 2019, so it's only been our responsibility since then.
7 years.
We've had a variety of plans for the wide site area, which haven't come to fruition for reasons you probably know. And the original intention would have been that we dealt with it as part of the demolition of the wider site. Because things have moved on, as Bruce said, it's become unsafe, it's a health safety issue, council tax on it's phenomenal. We've now done a piece of work against Bruce highlighted it's far more cost effective and sensible to do something now because there is uncertainty at the moment over that we don't want to finalise it.
Answer your question. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, just the that particular property is part of the Oasthouse development. So we'd expect that when it was built fairly, it was, built very well. And the actual, I don't know, the footprint of it and the building of it is probably to take 350,000 to redo it, you can still do something with it. To play devil's advocate, is it possible not to carve it off of the main Oasthouse section, and maybe if somebody decided they'd take it off your hands and then spend 400,000 on it to make it a viable site, would that potentially fly? And if not, why not?
So you've got two elements there. You've got essentially a cap on the value of that property once you've brought it back into an occupiable condition. And then it's a two-bed house, and it essentially it's a house that you can't argue. So there's no drop curb, so you can't access the property with a car or something.
You can make a job
Next
for
door,
it, surely.
next door to this train station.
It's used on the junction as well, so it's
not.
No, not even from a historical perspective, from a robust perspective, because you can do something with it. Because I'm thinking the environmental impact of bulldozing it, if somebody were to come along and say, look, I like this property, I've got £400,000, I'd like to do something with it. And it's in a great location because it could potentially turn into a business, and that is a great location also for business. Would you not be able to carve it off, or is that going to be too much of a pain in the,
you wouldn't know what the effect you have on the wider redevelopment, and being a corner site, what might include is fettering the development of the surrounding on the Oasthouse and Kingston Road site by retaining that use or that in there, because you might affect the ability to the building adjacent to it. So you have a detrimental effect on the potential detriment effect on the value of the rest of the site by retaining it as it is, retained as a residential unit.
Is that on which building is Max talking about?
yes, it's that really lovely one completely covered in ivy, almost.
Exactly.
Lovely.
Exactly.
Yes.
Near Christian Centre.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I thought sometimes I'd like to buy it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Just wondering, I know you guys are specialists, but
Yeah, the issue, I think the issue is it's slap bang in the middle of what anyone would want to develop as part of that house size. So if you were to sell it to an individual to do it, then you would effectively be
putting yourself as a sort of hostage position for anything else that you or HSR or anybody might want to do that on those south side.
Right, okay, so,
That's
in
why you
English,
sell it.
we've got this little, development, this probably not development, this little unit that's, potential for development, but you don't want to separate it from the mummy and daddy because somebody's gonna wanna come and buy the whole shebang. Is that what you're saying? You wanna keep it as one lot? And otherwise, if you do sell it one little bit and it turns into a successful business, somebody might go,
Yeah, it's the
Residential.
impact
All
on
residential.
the wider development. I like the terminology about separating from mummy and dad. We keep that. Being serious, yeah, it's fact, it's not viable to convert it.
yeah, to my mind, it just, sounds like such a shame, doesn't it? I mean, it's gorgeous. Yeah. And then the one on the corner, the Fair Brothers, that was the old organisation just coming into the car park. That was, those guys sold coal and coke for the railway. And that was like mid 19th century, you know, sort of, so they're quite cute old buildings.
Yes. Well, it's amazing.
Robust.
Yes, yeah. Can I go to Councillor Hopkins, sir?
I'm going to suggest something completely different.
Oh, can't wait.
Why don't we do it up? We can turn around and keep saying, we're short of housing. They're saying for 350,000, they could do it up. That's got to be cheaper than buying a property on the open market to put somebody in. Then looking forward to when things happen, you know, say the train station happens, they'll happily buy it at a premium rate off us. It will be part of Speltham's thing, rather than turning round and going and buying a house, a 2-bedroom house for 400,000 or that.
I think it comes back to all the same reasons that we've kind of discussed for other things. We're not doing any more development ourselves. If we were looking at bringing it back into use, we would sell it to third party for the reasons that we've just outlined. That's not.
So basically, you just want to flatten it so as to make sale place more profitable.
About planning it for health and safety purposes, and the fact that we're not paying 12,000 pounds a year council tax. Just
No, but if you turn around and developed it as a home and could put one of your multiple tenants,
we wouldn't. We would say if we were looking to develop it easy, we sold it to third parties to do it. We're under a best value intervention. We are not doing that type of thing ourselves.
but why are you then turning around and saying that you're going and looking to buy properties?
Because that's being funded effectively grant funding and grant funding from the central government, so which is about 60% value. It's being looked at in a different spheres. This is a development. So it was purchased for, and that's what we ordered.
Councillor Buck?
So last question, the council only needs similar property, dilapidated state that this committee is not aware.
One down the cemetery in Ashford.
That's all going to be done.
I know it has, and what I'm saying is why don't you do the same for this?
Because it was totally different position. We spent money on it to bring it back up to repair the sums that we were talking about, let's say, and that's not a development site, it's a property that we owned on the edge of another landholding that will continue as a cemetery use, so it could be the same concerns.
Councillor Geek?
When we bought the Ace house, did we always intend to flatten? So how?
Yeah, the original intention was to develop that whole site.
Yeah.
Which would include demolishing that, not demolishing those houses, obviously, but the whole area would change. The original plans, people would stick a load of flats up there, but that was ruled out for a number of reasons. So the plan is still to develop this in some way. the key thing that's changed, I guess, is that we're not going to do that ourselves. We'll try and find someone to do it for us. But what we don't want to do, by the sounds of it, is create a sort of hostage strip. So someone buys that bit and then turns around and says, okay, say you want to build this lovely station approach or whatever, it's going to cost you millions for my house.
But then if we turn around and done it up, we were still the owners.
We could ask.
We wouldn't be
We
the
would then have the ransom.
we wouldn't be the owners, that's the point. We are on under intervention. We cannot go and spend 400, 500 grand doing that property up and then renting it out to people. We haven't got that option. We're one to do that.
But they, in their figures, they say 350,000 maximum.
But then you're still paying the council tax on it while you do all.
Doesn't matter whether it's 150, 250 or 500,000, due to statutory intervention. Doing refurbishment.
So we just go and buy at a higher rate.
Ashford Cemetery Lodge was done prior to statutory intervention. This site is how it's just said for development purposes. It would be comprehensive. The red line effectively that we purchased as development site. Lots of same bits.
Just further question, that is one little block on the site. What about the other buildings, because there are a number of them? So are they going to go one by one and get flattened so that something could be developed, or what do you think can happen with that? Could they be brought into use as part of a development if there was some form of third party wanted to buy it, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, most of them aren't. So you've got the church, which is
Yes.
two of the buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you've got the commercial property.
Yes.
At the front there, and then you've got 36 gigs the rear of 36 is not very compliant to prohibition.
Right.
And then you've got the Oast House buildings themselves,
Yes.
down the east boundary, which is in certain condition as well. So, so those buildings will have their life will be determined by whatever plans come forward.
Flexible leases, which is so the whole structure of that site has been done on the basis that we can get possession back easily from the development of the agreement.
So you're not going to come back next week and ask to demolish another building?
No.
Week after? Okay, just check.
Maybe a few months down the line.
But not tomorrow, not next week.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
So how much will the demolition cost be? We've said it's got to go to procurement.
It's in here.
Well, it says between 25 and 50.
If we were in part two, I'll probably be able to give you a bit more information on it, but there's you've got various strands. You've got planning application, fees, you've got the actual demolition itself. You've also got guano removal, because there's a mess in there. So they're the three main strands of the sort of demolition costs itself. So that the thing I've sort of put in there in curiosity today is the expected maximum.
That's the bad survey.
That's the bad survey we will do.
Okay, we can't find a rare pigeon or something.
There's lots of vision in there, but
We
I'm
rare.
pretty sure they're rare.
They're not rare.
They're not rare enough anyway.
They're just happy.
Fantastic.
It's a shame. You know what? It is a real shame that this, we've gone down the line like this from 2017, 18, blah, blah, blah. But, we are where we are. And if you want to keep it as one whole site, somebody's going to buy it as one whole site, hopefully do something nice to it and retain the Great Tudor building, which is the most important part. And compared to what it was a few years ago to now, it's been left to go to rack and ruin. And it's making me really sad. Every day I see that place, but we are where we are, just it's biological.
I agree with what's, I agree. I think the priority is sorting out the Oast House.
Yeah,
And we need to make that site as attractive as possible for someone to buy it, because they've been taking on what is effectively a liability, which is the Oast
100%.
House.
Yeah,
So personally, I don't think we should be putting barriers in the way of having something that we've redeveloped on a short-term basis. I think we need to make the site as attractive as possible, and then say to people, well, by the way, this host house comes with the site.
It's nearly becoming too late, to be honest, but, okay.
Yeah, we need to,
You've got
we need to
the
crack, we
pros.
need to crack on and sort out.
You know what you want to do with the site.
Councillor Geek, sorry, Councillor Buck, you
Yeah,
had.
I can see in section 2.6 of the report, it's recommended that the demolition should be undertaken in October or March, when the bats are less likely to be present. So what's the source of this information? How do you know the bats?
So I had to write this before we had the final bat survey and the deadline. So this was basically that we have to manage bats, but there aren't any. So the timeline now will be subject to the planning application and getting the planning consent and the procurement of the demolition contractor. So it's still likely to be around October, everything being equal to the recommendation of the committee.
Councillor Geek.
So what happened? Sorry, somebody lived there and just move out.
It was empty when we bought it.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Google Maps images back to 2008, that's the first Google image back in 2008, and it looks pretty horrible then.
The Oast House itself, you mean that big bit at the station, that must be in need of some TLC because it wasn't it burnt? There must have fire.
It's definitely in need of some TLC.
Yeah. It's lots of loving from his mummy and daddy.
Yes.
With lots and lots of money.
Yeah, lots of money.
Which mummy and daddy?
Yes.
But that's not in danger of collapsing, is it?
We hope not, but, you know, it wasn't that long ago it was in use. And that's what's so heartbreaking. And then now you can almost not go into it without killing yourself, but it's not that long ago it was in use.
One of the issues with Ghost House is that it was overpaid. I think
Yeah,
the council spent 20 million on it.
21.
21 million. Yeah, which is why I say to what we really need to crack on and get someone to take that over and sort it out for us and make the rest of the site as attractive as possible.
But we bought it from Surrey County Council, so when the local government reorganisation comes, we can get the money back.
Yeah, dream on. Are there any other questions, seriously,
No.
before we move on? Okay,
Okay,
so,
heartbreaking, but yeah.
so you're going to look at the committee report for Councillor Rita. So we have to say, does the committee agree to approve the group head of assets submission of a planning application for the demolition of 34 pieces of road safe items and the procurement of the contractor to carry out demolition?
No.
Do you agree?
No.
So you get our proposal. Quick show of hands.
Oh, not that voting.
May I abstain, please?
3, 4, 5. One abstention. I'm going to say 6. Those against? 1. Okay, fine. So that's carried. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So you want to go to Well, you said that's the transition.
It's a shame that you can't move the funds around.
Actually,
Yeah.
Councillor Buck was asking whether we had a list of assets, which we do have. Yeah,
It's up to
it's
date.
pretty up to date.
Today,
Pretty
yeah, we're
comprehensive.
updated following our previous feedback.
Yeah. We didn't always have it, so we can.
So it's a lovely period of time.
Thank you, thanks Chris, thanks Coralie.
Thank you. Moving swiftly on.
Swiftly.
Item 9 is proposed council transitional corporate plan. This item is we wish to consider the proposed council transitional plan and provide comments on any areas relevant to the committee's agreement. So may I ask Leo O'Neill, Deputy Executive, to provide this?
Last but not
Thank you.
least.
Thank you, Chair. Proposed council transition plan was endorsed by the Policy Resources Committee on 26th May, consultation with service committees of the council. So we're therefore seeking your comments this evening on plan of action, something we have to CRC to the council. The council delivered a lot under its current corporate plan, which was planned designed to cover a 5-year period from 2024 to 28. Unfortunately, however, I think we've moved on. A lot of things have affected our ability to continue that, not least the and local government reorganisation. So it's no longer feasible to deliver all those actions that we have down short, medium, and long-term actions. So particularly the medium to long-term action is to stop stage and focus on other things. The proposed transitional plans designed to provide a clear focus framework for the council's final phases of authority.
Sorry, Lee, can't hear you.
Microphone.
Enabling us to deliver, I'll try shouting there, enable us to continue delivering services to residents and supporting our staff, whilst also positioning the council to play an active role in shaping a financially sustainable, resilient West Surrey Unitary Authority. It's built around our current corporate priorities, the CARES priorities, but also reflects our current operating context in terms of statutory intervention and pressures and services, and also the ongoing need to continue to provide statutory and discretionary services. So overall, the plan aims to put Sprouthorne stable, well-managed position and leave a sustainable legacy moving into the new unitary authority. The appendix we've attached to the plan it's highlighting the other suggested areas of focus for this committee. A full copy of the report and the appendices can be found by the links that we provided. Now, most importantly, all the actions outlined in the transitional plan are designed to be delivered with existing budgets and resources. As the budgets for the council has been set for 26-27, any new actions are suggested by the committee would need to be accommodated within current financial staff resources. So we're therefore asking you that if you do identify any new proposals that we consider we should be thinking about, to find how we fund that, we'd ask you to consider how you suggest we fund that, either through repurposing existing resources or maybe using available grant funding that may be available. What we'll do then is we'll then gather this. We've got a fairly short time scale to turn this around to try and get us back to the 30th of July and then report onto full council. So take on board any feedback today, and so we'll incorporate that into the report and then to CPRC to decide how we want to take that forward in Washington. So I'll leave it there. I'm happy to take any comments, questions, any suggestions.
Thank you. I was totally. Thank you indeed. And as against the council.
Just very quickly, Lee, I was a bit confused about the yellow highlighty bits.
Yeah, what I've done.
Could you explain exactly what they are?
No, all of that. The plan covers all obviously the whole of the council and all of the service committees.
Right.
What I've done is I've gone through and just highlighted in yellow the areas that are more focused around this committee. And some of those highlighted yellow bits will cover all committees, for example,
Right.
quality of services and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So most of this committee's areas are under resilience, because that's where we had economic development on our corporate plan. So it's mainly focused around that. There's something on housing because of the general involvement with regeneration sites, and then the rest in terms of services applies to all committees across the country. You have services.
Yeah, okay, I was a bit confused by that. Thank you.
Environment Action 1, it's going to come up into the Guinness at some point.
Yes, yeah, that's something in terms of certainly with the Thames scheme we'll do. As I say,
because Heathrow expansion also comes under big committee.
Yeah. I mean that probably should be highlighted in yellow as well. Actually, But yeah, it's certainly by all means anything suggested in terms of Heathrow.
Get rid of Heathrow.
I think in 9 months might be a bit struggle. Yeah.
So need to. The way it's working out, you should get rid of us. Yeah. I cannot support this Heathrow.
Exists.
I think key thing here is to look to this report for anything that is missing that's important to you. Because it's really, this is our opportunity to look and say, hang on, why is that not in there anymore? Can we have it back? Councillor Gibbs, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking at, so addressing housing action 1, develop an influence plan to deliver affordable housing. I just wondered if you were working with the community wellbeing housing, because obviously they've got their own plan to get people out of bed and breakfasts, etc. That's like a priority for them. So are you linked up on that? And is it actually feasible to have people in sort of new affordable housing by the end of this, the existence of Spelthorne Borough Council?
I thought I want to talk about that because you're doing quite well on now.
You highlight quite correctly, councillor, the lag around delivery. Housing delivery districts and other boroughs, it's an endurance sport. What that action plan seeks to do, though, is to identify the potential that is here, the relationships and partnerships that will be needed to bring more homes online, particularly affordable homes in future. So I can't promise to land a new scheme within 9 months, certainly, but I think there's very important foundational work, planning work and work with partners that will transition to the successful authority. It's still worth doing, is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because it's definitely one of our aims by this council is to get those people out of bed and breakfasts, which are extortionate costs anyway.
And to answer the other part of your question, yes, this has been to community wellbeing and housing, so any comments from them will be fed in as well, so they've seen this as well.
Yeah, small one.
Councillor Gibson.
Lee, just very quickly, how is this tying up or stroke dovetailing with the improvement and recovery plan?
Well, there's elements of this that does link directly to the improvement.
Because I don't see actual links to the improvement and recovery plan. We've had that for quite a long time, so I'm just wondering how that works.
Well, what we're actually producing behind the scenes on this is a delivery plan as well, so that's going to have more of the
two delivery plans.
No, the delivery plan. These deliverables that are listed here. So more in terms of what the outputs are actually going to be, and that will help us link in with some of those things.
So have you got a map linking these elements with the improvement and recovery plan, in which there are many elements and a lot of details? I'm just trying to think how they all fit together so that we don't go off on a tangent and do something somewhere and some things elsewhere. Because you know what the improvement and recovery plan covers a lot.
It does. As I said, the improvement plan stands on its own 2 feet, and that is in many respects in terms of the work we're doing on this. These are some of the things, some of the key things we want to deliver. Some of them link in directly. Others are things that are outside the scope of that. So that's what I would suggest that when we do our delivery plan, that would make sure that those things actually link in together. So there's certainly not going to be duplication of things. So these things are going to be done. They're not going to be done in isolation, but at the same time, they're not going to be replicated.
When do you envisage this plan that you're talking about is going to be completed? With that for?
That's going to, from our perspective, we want to get this agreed, get your ideas, what you want to do. Then we're going to produce a delivery plan, which is going to be potentially mostly operational in terms of making sure our teams are delivering it, and then we can actually be factual on what we're doing under those various elements. Because
so
this is quite high level.
Could you give me an idea? All I'm thinking is that the train is moving towards next April. So I'm just trying to get an idea of feasibility, viability, is it worth the effort, all those things, and your timescales, because April isn't a long way away.
Well, we've got to get this to CPRC in July, then it'll go on to full council, hopefully straight after. That's the way we get to get this. But if this gives us the high level elements, then we can build the detail behind it.
Okay, assuming you get all
next over a couple of months after that, because we then got Paul quite rightly looked at this. And, we started mapping out a delivery plan, but Paul's got quite a lot of work to do before he can put in all the deliverables that are going to be necessary under this. But what we're trying to get here are the broad agreement for the elements that we're going to focus on mainly.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Assuming everything goes through CPRC
Yeah,
and everybody goes, yay, happy days. When are you going to get your plan sorted?
That's what I'm saying. I would estimate within a couple of months we should have because we're saying July for CPRC.
Probably September.
So we're looking probably September.
September.
But obviously things will be moving ahead. We'll be working on some of this already, but actually to come back with some
Oh,
sort of
yeah, because we've got the
update.
master plan going on, we've
Yeah,
got stuff
yeah.
going on, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll come back. I would suggest September because we've got obviously a CPRC then coming in September. So we could be given a detail of the elements behind it.
Right. Okay, this just looks a little bit juvenile. I mean, I was expecting, sort of, I don't know, right status, are your deliverables?
That's what the delivery plan will have. And it's going to have outputs. It's going to have it's going to have officers assigned to it. It'll have a start date, a finish date. All that detail will be there behind the scenes. But this perspective, we've had to move fairly quickly to try and get something mapped out that we can all agree on. And that gives us the skeleton on which to build.
Thank you. I leave it to the rest of my colleagues to investigate further if needed.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Beach next and Councillor Hopkins.
This is going back to the CBNRC.
Yeah.
When's it going to ENS?
We've been to ENS already with this.
Yes, it was at last week.
Last week.
Yeah, I think it was at ENS last week, yeah. Sounds like that.
So I've already mapped out comments from ENS already in terms of some of the, it's already been. This is the last committee, so, and actually what we've given people feedback to us from the committees by the end of this week. And this is obviously the last committee, so we can then start finalising the report to go on to CBNC for a very quick term.
Councillor Hopkins.
When it was at ENS, they turned around and they said about the progressing plans for the multi-use games. Noticed it's still there, yet you turned around and you said that survey has closed or near to closing.
Just would say one thing, that's not an element for this committee, and this was published before we had ENS anyway, so that's why nothing's changed at the moment. This is what's gone to all committees.
No, say the wording, because it was agreed to change the wording to rest.
But that's, sorry, Councillor, that's a different committee.
Okay.
That's for ENS to deal with, not me.
Okay.
Anybody else? Sorry, Councillor. No? No? It's so, the text here says, does the committee agree to provide comments as discussed during the debate to form part of the post-transitional plan? I'm not sure we've actually made many comments or suggestions for changes. Is this the one opportunity you look out to do that, or can people email you separately, or you don't as a committee in committee?
We prefer you to agree sign as committee, but if you come up with something and something worth considering. What I've done so far is mapped out the comments I've had from the committees in terms of who's made those comments, what the suggested changes. We have formulated in our head, whether that's a valid change or not, based on what we're trying to deliver here and the reason why. And then that will go to CPRC for them for that committee to make a decision as to whether conclusions are correct or whether they want to take on board the suggestions that councillors come forward with.
And then the deadline for that is.
Well, unfortunately, we'd like to try, that's why we wanted to try and, if you've got anything tonight, so.
Just jumping, it actually needs to be a committee decision. Or
That's
individual.
okay, fine, that's what I'm suggesting.
So this is the opportunity to flesh out what exactly.
So it's literally bits in yellow, that's what you care about.
Well, apart from that, I put the element around Heathrow, they're the areas that really are for this committee's.
I can't see any reason why the committee can't comment on any other areas, whether that's going to be aligning with comments from the corresponding committee, that's a different matter. But if the committee feels particularly strongly about something, then and agrees collectively that this is what you would like to see done to the general plan, conditional plan origin. Then by all means, I can be
To be honest, sorry, Rebecca,
So-
you go first.
Councillor Hughes, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Evans.
I don't know if there's a way to phrase it more strongly, but I've seen a really lot, and highlighted in yellow about transition to West Surrey, making sure our priorities are understood. I am very concerned that things such as the bids, both in Staines and in Ashford, the work we do to support businesses, Spelthorne is kind of the anchor to it. We are the anchor. And when people think of these schemes, they think of Spelthorne Borough Council. There is no anchor when Spelthorne Borough Council's gone. We've only got 14 councillors in West Surrey. Who's going to be that anchor? I don't know how to phrase it. Maybe you can take it away as a note.
I think you're absolutely right. I think Gordon's been sort of making noises about that and is looking for us to do some kind of, this is Spelthorne, this is what we do, and these sort of things that are important to us. So that lands with the new council, so they just can't, they should just forget about things that we've got in place. Things like bids, whatever, they'll be in place for a period of time until they need to go to that again. So there'll be those sorts of things in place, but support services and things like that are obviously based on budgets. We've budgeted for continuing these things until the end of our sort of financial existence, basically. But obviously, then you are on that to West Surrey. But the idea of some of the, you see some of the references in here about getting that message across is making sure that some businesses know what's happening. And there's one thing, for example, referencing support for businesses in terms of support businesses who aren't and things like that. It's just making sure that those Shepperton studios of this world know we're going into West Surrey, and that West Surrey know how important those type of businesses are for supporting our communities, whatever they continue that thing, that particular sort of message. Similarly, Heathrow's incredibly important to our borough in terms of employment, whatever. We just want to make sure that again the new unitary authority understands how important Heathrow is to this area and why they should be paying key part and getting the most out of it, because it's at the moment. I have to say, when we got to Heathrow, Heathrow is the Surrey County Council has shown very little interest in it as a hub. Even when we had the LEPs, they still didn't really make use of Heathrow in terms of some other areas around Gatwick. So I think that those are the sort of messages we've got to try and build and get across the new authority system.
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to do. It's almost like I think it's a losing battle. I just can't see how places like Guildford are going to be interested in Heathrow, in Shepperton, in those small businesses and startups, which depend on all those sort of accelerators that we've done. Really, but I'd love for there to be. I really feel like Spelthorne's being the anchor to them. If we'd had the three unitary authorities, it would have been much easier to do. But yeah, anyway, perhaps building not just where the anchor is now, but how these any sort of accelerators, anything that really uses Spelthorne as a hub, how they can be self-resilient, perhaps going forward in the future. Sorry,
Is that mainly about messaging then? They've got something in here about messaging to West Surrey.
Yeah, but West Surrey aren't going to care.
Well, I mean, but they'll do what they'll do. But
Yeah.
We can put something in this document saying how important it is to us that Spelthorne specific economic interests are represented in West Surrey. So then forms part of that transition plan.
Absolutely, but I think community organisations, businesses, startups that have always sort of circled around Spelthorne, they've depended upon us. I don't think they can depend on West Surrey in the future.
Because there is something in here thinking about supporting local economic growth, which is quite a broad topic. I guess what I'm hearing is that we want that strengthening bit saying, and this gets very effectively messaged into West Surrey that Spelthorne does need to be protected. Is that sort of bit or?
Yes, but I also feel like those businesses, those organisations, they're depending on us, not just for money, but for advice, for example. They have some form of self-resilience, because I can just see a lot of these schemes, I don't know what everyone is, falling apart since Bath Borough Council ceases to exist.
That's fair. Food for thought, Lee?
No, absolutely, yeah. We, as I say, we can firm up some of the wording in here as well. I think it's yeah, I'll find a way of doing it. I can't be getting some.
These things have to go in favour of themselves now.
That's
So I've now got Michelle, then Sharon, then Paul. Question.
Yeah, I don't want to stress you out anymore on this.
No.
But I'm looking at these things and thinking, well, these are things that we actually have been doing for a very long time. And some of these seem to be a bit nebulous. Support and prepare staff for transition into West Surrey Council. I mean, I quite honestly don't know how on earth we're going to do that, because don't know what West Surrey Council is even going to look like. Rebuilding confidence through training and development, strong leadership, clear priorities. That takes that, I mean, unless you've got a proper program and then you've got deliverables now, I'm confused about this, I'll be honest with you, because a lot of the elements in this we've been doing for quite a long time. So is this something that's been requested by the team that are putting together the reorganization, or what exactly is driving this? Because I'm a bit confused. This is stuff we've been doing for a long time.
Well, you've hit the nail there. What we're basically saying here are a lot of these things, things we budgeted, they have to be things we've already budgeted for, we're dealing with. We've highlighted some of the things that are continuing in terms of trying to get some of these things across along the end of the financial year. So that's why some of them I would have seen, we want to finish off the work we're doing. When we're talking about the transitions on West Surrey, that is one of the things we're already having trained, is to try and get staff prepared for that.
So we've got monetary values attached to these.
We've got budgets for certain elements of this, yeah. It's all within budget. This is all has to be done within budget, so there won't be any additional money.
So, okay, so let me just be clear here. I need to understand exactly what we're actually approving for CPRC. So basically what you're saying is all these elements in this sheet are budgeted for. And what we want to do is to make sure that the budget that's allocated to these will be spent on these and not elsewhere. Is that what you're saying?
Turn that round the other way. All this stuff is in there and is budgeted.
Yeah.
What is not in there that you think should be in there, because that won't be budgeted and you have to find money from somewhere else. So rather than looking at what's in there.
Well, we haven't got any more money, so how's that working?
Yeah, but that's the point. That's the point of this discussion, is look at what's not in there and say, hang on, that should be in there. And you have to find money from somewhere. That's the purpose of this. It's not diving into what's already in here, because that's already in there. What I'm looking at here is what's not in here that I think should be in there.
If everyone is with the money and finding the money, that's sometimes advice actually, if it's not there, it has to be a trade-off. If there's something that you want to see there,
That's what I mean,
then something off.
So we're not
Besides
going to
that,
magic money up to do something that is here.
No.
That's what I'm trying to get
No,
to.
so please look at what's not in here that you think should be in. And then we have to make a case for taking money from something that is in here. That's the key.
What you're going to do less of in order to make what you want to be done. And alternatively, if there's grant money you think is sitting somewhere that will use for something, you can identify that as an option, then fine. So that's money that's sort of been sitting somewhere. But what we can't do is come up with something that is costly that you haven't got money for now.
Let me give you an example. If this didn't mention Staines master plan, someone should be putting their hand up and saying, why isn't the Staines master plan? That's what we're asking we should look at. What's not in here that you think should be in here?
Okay.
Right, Councillor Hawkins.
Questions. And you're going to say it's not in the yellow block, but I'm going to say it anyway. I believe that the River Ash should be included in it. And that it needs a lot of environmental work doing on it, and that the river is no longer flowing. And that my thoughts are is when we go to West Surrey, it's going to end up, it's going to end up a forgotten area. And it does cause flooding and stuff like that locally. You know, we've got money in the Green Grant pot. So you're saying about money coming from elsewhere, that should come there.
Just make a point, again, this is not for this committee, that's
Sorry.
in essence, the point you made, the point where you're in essence, we've
Yeah, I
already
did.
recorded that, so. It's not,
And we've lost support from the committee, so.
Yeah, and the
And
other
so
thing,
Sunday, she did provide a clarification in terms of,
there's work already being
the
done.
works and, so addressing the concern that you are raising.
I can show you photos where it's not, but anyway, we'll forget about
Can we
that.
keep it to
All right.
this committee? And
Right.
again, please, what's not in here that you think should be here from this committee?
Right, okay, the refuse collection. We collect at the, we don't know what you want to call it. We collect refuse for East and West Surrey. That is something that's going to be problematical going forward. That's something that.
It's not this committee.
That's not
Yes,
this committee, though, is it?
Okay.
We stick to things that are this committee, otherwise.
Right.
Business improvement, business
Okay.
infrastructure. Business development.
Okay, so
But
we've got.
refuse collection doesn't fit within this committee.
Okay, so just on a broad thing, you're talking about going forward to West Surrey. We have got, I don't know how many new councillors. We've got 14 councillors. I think it's between 8 and 10 that have never been councillor of any sort at all. Maybe they should start to be asked to come to committees so as to give them an idea of what being a councillor is about.
Okay, so that's the key to this committee.
No, because
I'm sorry, Karen.
Ensuring
Completely off the topic here.
No, ensuring local priorities are understood and reflected as part of the successful transition to West Surrey Council. So having councillors that are turning around and aware.
That's
then
not the
that's all it-
opposite now, but I absolutely take your point about the councillors, that the new councillors, and there's a programme that, well, there's a induction programme run by the interim monitoring officer on behalf of West Suffolk, and then equally, there's various activities planned within this council. For the very point that you're raising, councillor, it's very validly that they need to be made aware of what the priorities and areas of concern are, so they can bring those issues on the course of the study. But it's all happened.
Because I mean, two of the new ones are with their dump.
Absolutely.
And they don't know anything about it and the waste situation.
And thank you for raising it.
I'm going to go to Paul now, and then short.
I just wanted to make two very quick points, councillors. In here, I touched on the housing action plan previously. Chair, you already mentioned the master plan. For me, they're two real tangible examples of areas of high value work that members and officers can do in the next few months that will actually shape the investment in this borough in the years ahead. It's really high value work. And that inward investment, direct capital investment in services and in place, but also thinking about generating income through SIL in the future. And we've been talking about SIL recently. What we've got now, it's also about what we generate in the future. Councillor, your point about staff development, really important. Probably 3 or 4 times a week, I'm having discussions about how some of this plays out in the unitary environment. I think that's something that we need to give the staff the tools to think through their jobs in a new environment. It's happening on a day-to-day basis. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on this? Sorry, Sean. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Rule me out of order if you think it's out of order. I want to talk about the transition to West Surrey Council. Some of my colleagues have touched upon it so far, but it's clear to me that the 14 councillors that have been elected, and Councillor Hawkins makes a good point about the relative inexperience as councillors of some of them. What they, and we know there's a cross section of parties in those 14. I think what they must do post 1st of April next year is work, as well as their party political allegiances, they also have to be conscious that Spelthorne is fairly unique in West Surrey in the nature of where it is, what it feeds, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Heathrow in a minute, its proximity to London, which nowhere else in West Surrey has. So the 14 of them, you know, I think will have to a degree, put their political differences aside and put Spelthorne very much at the core of what they do in 4 years post the 1st of April. In a very similar vein, we know that the Liberal Democrats will run West Surrey. So my suggestion to Chris and others who will sit there is that they must strongly lobby the Lib Dem cabinet and executive that will run West Surrey to ensure that Spelthorne is not ignored. And specifically, we touched upon it, Heathrow. There is going to be, whether we end up with a third runway, a short runway, Heathrow is going to expand within the current boundaries. CEO of Heathrow Airport has committed to spending, I think, 10 million within the boundary, irrespective of the third runway. There are and there should be significant regeneration potential for all of Spelthorne, but you know, parochially for those of us that Stanwell councillors, Stanwell, Ashford, etc. There's going to be jobs for the youngsters coming out of schools, and I do have a concern that the rest of West Surrey will not listen to Spelthorne unless those 14 Spelthorne councillors be strong advocates. And part of that, and I've not spoken to Chris, but I've spoken to other Liberal Democrats. I do not see that there is anyone in the proposed Liberal Democrat executive who is going to be solely dealing with Heathrow. And I think that should be a standalone, not part of a transport portfolio with all the different, but at least till Heathrow is either up and running, extended or not, that should be a standalone. But I've spoken to other Liberal Democrats, but I'll talk to Chris privately on that.
So we're saying somewhere in the stock.
I would like it more codified, I guess, if that's feasible. I don't know whether it is or not. You know, I've also spoken to some Conservative, well, there's only 2 of them, but I've also spoken to both of them about, and I think it's fair to say they share my view about being advocates for Spelthorne. I broadly speaking agree with West Surrey, although I would have preferred 3, but I'm concerned, like Karen and Rebecca and others have said, that if the 14 aren't strong advocates, that as we move forward, all those important things that, you know, councillors before me have worked hard to achieve, and officers like Lee and others will, you know, in a fairly short period of time be diminished. And I don't think any of us.
I think we all share that concern that we're just going to get lost in the thing.
Absolutely, 100%.
We've got, just looking at on the services one, we've got a number 2 about champion service, needs, strengths, whatever. I'm reading from you, I probably need to beef up a little bit more with the Liberal reports about, for example, you know, pressing on West Surrey, the importance of the business support that's been provided with the borough, and you know, and championing that as something that they would continue with having the funding going forward. So
all the things that we do.
Sean's just gone on about the Heathrow. Let me just mention the importance. I mean, we're going to lose BP, one of our biggest employers, imminently. But you know, Shepperton Studios employs is phenomenal. I mean, they've got car parks with like 3,500 cars. You know, we need to somehow make these 14 councillors aware of the importance of Shepperton Studios going forward and what it can bring and does bring to Spelthorne.
We like going on fees here?
No, that goes on to support local economic growth, but
Spelthorne.
Okay.
No, so again, it's a committee that they've minded to do. We put something in here about, obviously we need to engage with the South or West Surrey councillors to make sure they're aware of all the key issues throughout the plan. You know, that could be a general, yeah, you know, it's in the services sort of area, maybe, that covers the whole year. It's not just for your committee, it's all the other, the housing issues about South, you know, facing away. We just got to make sure that message, and we get them in, invite them in, you know, at some point to say, these are the things you need to go and say out to the West Surrey Authority. So if you're happy with that.
Can I just make a suggestion? I can't think of a word off the top of my head, but I think a stronger word than engage. I can't think of one, but I think engage gives the other side a bit of a, yeah.
You've actually got excuse me, Chair, but you actually got champion platforms.
Yeah, I think that's stronger.
That's in there.
Yeah. I just think engage is
I think what we're saying we want a can-do plan.
Yeah.
So it isn't like we end and then they start and everybody does forgot.
That's what we are doing. We're handing over what we have to those guys to continue.
So we want something in there built in saying we want to see a handover plan to the new councillors representing staff.
Yes.
So they know what all the issues are that we will be talking about. Yeah.
Good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on that? I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time too. Go on.
Actually. So, bearing in mind what we've just been discussing, does the committee agree to provide comments as discussed during the debate to form part of the proposed transit agreement?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 10 was the governance assurance register. This has been deferred to the next meeting simply because technically we couldn't get back before Matt to get here. I think the plan is to try and slot it in on the 30th of July.
Yeah, one of the other reasons is part of the role of the service committees is to obviously scrutinise performance and whatever, and that gives us some data for you in terms of delivering to report to them.
Great, thank you.
Rather than halfway through a quarter. So.
Thank you. We will, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and ask, see if we can add that to the forward plan the 30th of July with the governance thing. Thank you. Item 11, shares updates. Okay, so this item is for the committee to receive updates from the chair on items within the committee's agreement. So, we've been seeking to understand the potential to achieve significant investment in several of the in-borough sites acquired with the original intention of physical regeneration, housing delivery, such as the OSAN. Soft market testing has been undertaken over the previous few weeks to understand the level of interest from suitable affordable housing developers, particularly registered housing providers with an active development investment program. They are about as rare as hen's teeth. This will be important if we are to secure meaningful delivery of affordable housing development on some of the council oversights in recent times. This exercise has targeted organisations who are known to be progressing affordable housing and who met a set of council specified criteria around suitability, proven track record of delivery, and financial standing. The feedback from developers around the council sites was somewhat mixed in terms of appetite for sites with or without housing people and types and quantum of housing. The marketing exercise has resulted in several requests for follow-up discussions with registered provider developers and development partners, all focused on affordable housing delivery as the main priority for sites. These discussions are ongoing and will be concluded over the next few weeks, which should then allow options to be formed and enable any firm recommendations to be made about how to progress development of the sites. Currently, we expect to bring an update report to be in September setting out the conclusions from these following discussions. Yes.
How does this fit in with the current affordable housing SPD? We have a supplementary planning
We do, yes.
document that
Yeah.
we're going to be discussing on Monday
Yes.
in an ECM. And there's quite a lot of information, well, quite a lot of would like to have in there about the affordable housing element to do with the providers.
Yes, the SPJ reform,
Yeah.
housing form part of these discussions. Sorry, what were you?
Chair, just very briefly, my clear understanding of the affordable housing SPD is it's seeking to create the circumstances defining to enable more affordable homes to be developed in this borough. These discussions that you refer to are also about achieving that end. They're about achieving positive relationship with like-minded, competent and resourced RPs that are shared, whose interests are aligned with the affordable housing SPD, and that they hopefully become part of that delivery system.
But notwithstanding the hen's teeth.
Yes.
Notwithstanding, when the hens teeth come for the planning application, that is when the SPD steps in.
Correct. Yes. But I would also say it creates the expectation of quality thresholds of affordable housing. So it helps ahead of the planning application. It helps as part of those discussions. It's enabling.
Do you have any other questions? I mean,
Thank you.
this is just a kind of a feedback to notes.
Well, that's good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree to note the update?
Noted, Julie.
Thank you. So I think this is right. I think this is the final item. Right. Forward plan. Forward plan can be found on pages 41 to 44 of the agenda. We've just agreed we're going to add the governance assurance onto the meeting on the 30th of July. Are there any questions on the forward plan?
No.
No. Do we agree to note forward plan?
Agreed.
Okay. That concludes the business of this meeting. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.